Modern news media is bad. There, I said it. End of video. I don't think I'm wrong in that assessment. Media corporations are for-profit companies fighting for your attention. Kind of like me right now. Attention is the most valuable limited resource in society because your time is money. They will do anything to grab even a second of it. A second can turn into a minute, and if we apply that to the entire population, that's a lot of profit. There are 3 fronts the media uses to obtain your attention: print, television, and social media. Through these, the media will tell you over-exaggerations that are meant to split society into right and wrong. Understanding the way the media affects society will help us in adopting better policies to keep it in check. The modern news media is bad. But what if I told you we can fix it? Welcome to my bedroom. It's the end of the year, so in a week I'm gonna blow this popsicle stand. But before I do that, you may be wondering what makes the modern media landscape so bad anyway. Well, in the push to popularize politics, Andrea Umbrich and Frank Esser study what makes the media so negatively influential. They use tactics such as sensationalization. It's the practice of emphasizing the unusual elements of a story to make it more interesting to the public. Let me show you how the media is influencing the public, and by extension, you. I made this very nice diagram I like to call the mattress of media. This is situated in a triangle, and that'll make sense in due time. There are 3 fronts that they're fighting on. The first is print media. Because print media is now kind of obsolete, it has radicalized to boost sales, and this is apparent when the United Kingdom started pushing to leave the EU, a process that was nicknamed
This means that the UK has voted to leave the European Union.
Before the vote to leave the EU, an opinion by Fintan O'Toole was released by The Guardian, saying that the UK was rushing to leave. He argues if you're going to create a new nation state, you ought to be talking about it, arguing for it, thinking it through, and this isn't happening. England seems to be muddling its way towards a very peculiar event, accidental independence. He also blames English nationalism as one of the main reasons they're making this brash decision. This is an example of a print media source that was opposed to leaving the EU, which was few and far between back in 2016. In a fact that honestly shocks me, the majority of print outlets took the stance of pro-leave, according to a study done by the Reuters Institute of the University of Oxford. The numbers are frankly startling. Most of the print media is pushing an agenda to become their own sovereign nation separate from the EU. This idea wasn't left unnoticed by Davina Cordy of A News Education. She argues that the sensationalism of pro-leave newspapers drowns out the pro-Remain newspapers significantly. This can be attributed to how the papers are presented. They had huge lettering and bold images that popped out at you when on a newsstand, like this cover from The Sun on the day of the election. I mean, look at this. This is crazy. This compared to The Guardian's cover, yeah, I can see why they left the EU. Now, I haven't mentioned the television media in the UK because the BBC and other news networks there are restricted to stay as non-partisan as possible. But it's not like that in other countries. Traditional television media has pushed sensationalism to attract viewers and boost ratings. Yep, it's time to talk about the elephant in the room, the United States.
Anyone you want, but I think right here we're going to walk down to the Capitol.
In the US, the polarization of our politics is mostly the result of the media being so polarizing. Many countries have provisions to give power to the press to frame issues in whatever they see fit. In the US, it's called the Fourth Estate, since the press are kind of treated as the fourth branch of government. Through this promotion of the freedom given to the press, because the US is all about freedom, they have found ways to make stories fit the narrative they're trying to push. According to Ars Technica, most of the polarization in the US is attributed to the rise of cable in the 1990s and 2000s, arguably creating worse echo chambers than social media. It's no surprise that cable news has influenced politics. If a market becomes oversaturated, there's just too many niches to cover if you want to be successful. In the case of cable, there were over 70 channels in the 90s. This obviously is going to fragment the audience that was confined to just 3 channels before. In the book Why We're Polarized by Ezra Klein, he says, "We watch MSNBC if we're liberal, Fox News if we're conservative, and CNN if we just want to see people fight. We don't see or hear from the other side, so of course we're becoming more polarized. Side note, this book is actually chock full of reasons why what Ezra Klein calls identity politics have ruined the American political landscape. So if you're interested in it, please check it out. Maybe it's at a library, but I'm not too sure. I just bought this for $15. So yeah, great read. Of course, it's easier to cater to an extreme than the whole population. What if I say that Democrats are mobilizing the woke mob to bend society to their will? Or that Republicans are campaigning for a Christian nationalist country that will restrict the rights of marginalized people? I probably got a reaction from some of you. It's because both of those statements are radical about the other side. Sure, some of it is true, but this language is supposed to make people angry. Do you know what this language would do great on?
I'm gonna tweet my displeasure. I might even send an Instagram.
It has influenced everything in our daily lives, but it hasn't influenced anything quite like the way it's influenced politics. Why we're polarized makes a good point about social media. In the modern era, a shortcut to newsworthiness is social media virality. If people are already talking about a story or a tweet, that makes it newsworthy almost by definition. Social media has intrinsically restructured how we consume news. The main way we get news from the front lines of conflicts are from social media, which obviously is not the best source. Skewed perspectives of happenings around the world are perpetuated daily on platforms such as TikTok, Instagram, X, and Facebook. We saw it with the war in Ukraine and more recently with the Israel-Palestine conflict. A Politico newsletter from December of 2023 outlines this idea, with Mark Scott doing an experiment to see how much pro-Palestine and pro-Israel posts there were on TikTok. The algorithms of TikTok and by extension Instagram, Facebook, and countless other platforms recommend posts that get the most engagement. And those posts are usually extreme in its messaging. Reactions matter, and this conflict gets a lot of them. An article from The Conversation says that social media is designed to convey short, snappy, stark messages that are easy to grasp and repeat. Rather than helping people think about historical and moral ambiguity, social media usually promotes a cartoonish version of reality. And this is true. There's intricacies like the fact that Israel isn't technically a colony that took over Palestine, but it has colonies in Palestine. Huge juxtaposition. Look, Israel is a Zionist state. Zionism is the nationalist belief that Jewish people need to have a homeland. It stems from Genesis 12, yes, the Bible. The Lord said to Abram, "Go from your country and your kindred and your father's house to the land that I will show you. I will make of you a great nation, and I will bless you and make your name great, so that you will be a blessing." Now, this isn't the best optics for a nation that exists today. I'm of the belief that we have to separate church from state. This is coming from a person who's been Catholic his whole life. If we merge the two, we get a country that's accepting of one specific group and dismissive, even hostile towards the others. This is exactly what is happening in Israel and Palestine. Now, the US, which has a sizable number of citizens who practice Judaism's larger cousin Christianity, supports Israel. This is a highly contentious alliance, and that's why this conflict is perfect for social media. You couldn't even count how many times I've seen people sharing pro-Palestine Instagram posts on their stories. There are protests happening at universities all over the US, most notably at UCLA, where the university board tried to shut down the quote-unquote unlawful pro-Palestine encampment, while pro-Israel counter-protesters tried to shut down the protesters by force. In my opinion, these protesters are effectively getting their messaging across, no matter how violent they are. They're braver than the people posting something on social media because they're the boots on the ground. Sure, you can get the messaging across by posting a story, but with this slacktivism, you're only helping on a surface level. Social media is also the catalyst for traditional forms of media, like print and television, to move to more radical viewpoints. It's like social media has influenced both television and print are catering to social media. These radical viewpoints can include hypernationalism. Now, Israel-Palestine didn't stem from social media, but the hypernationalist sentiment now has a platform to spread its wings on. Of course, nationalism is the belief that the country you're a citizen of should make decisions based on the betterment of the nation, to the detriment of other nations. It's a very popular belief among alt-right groups such as Christian nationalists in the US and, in most advanced cases, Zionists in Israel. Look, I'm not saying that nationalism is bad or anything. In many instances, it's not. When the Olympics, World Cup, or World Baseball Classic come around, I'm right there with almost everyone in the country who's rooting for the US. See? I even have a hat. Michael Ski in Nationalism in Media says that rather than simply viewing nationalism as an exclusionary political ideology, it is much better understood as an established belief system, broadly accepted by many people around the globe, which suggests that the world is and should be divided into identifiable nations, that each person should belong to a nation, that an individual's nationality has some influence on how they think and behave, and also leads to some responsibilities and entitlements. By this understanding, even Brexit isn't even the worst example of a nationalist movement. They just wanted to leave the EU. It was their prerogative to leave. It ended up totally backfiring. They now really regret it, but that's besides the point. This understanding also doesn't mean that extreme nationalism doesn't make the world choose a side with lives on the line. This is exactly what social media is motivating to happen. The algorithms make it so these extreme ideas are the ones that are being promoted. Oh man, I didn't finish this. Yeah, television is an evolution of print, and it works in tandem with print. So, yeah, that's the Mattress of Media. I hope you guys enjoyed that. Yeah, this is stupid. Let's do something else. I've talked your head off about the why. Let's talk about how we can fix this. The most obvious solution is to revamp social media and the news media in general so that the only way you can be profitable is to remain impartial in all political situations, domestically and abroad. The way this can be done is by making social media companies accountable for what their algorithms promote. Maybe a cash incentive for companies that implement impartial algorithms. I don't think $20 is enough to buy off Mark and Elon, but you get the point. Of course, in the US, this would be hard to do since we emphasize freedom of the press so much. There's this idea of the marketplace of ideas, where there's freedom in the public discourse, and the prevailing argument is that the truth will rise to the top and the lies will crumble under the weight of the truth. This may have been true back in the day when media companies had to reach the broadest audience possible to make a profit, but now there's certain niches that everyone is targeting. If we get rid of the idea that the marketplace of ideas is benefiting us more than it's hurting us, we'll be on track to become a more cohesive society. For now, if we can't get rid of the marketplace of ideas, we can sort the marketplace so we can make better sense of it and be better informed by it. A service that's been around for a while that achieves this is Ground News. This is a site that offers the user the opportunity to see the bias of news articles. I have it pulled up right here. So let's look on this. Let's go to the Israel-Hamas conflict page right here. So yeah, if we scroll down a little bit, it has a media bias breakdown where it shows the percentage of left, right, and center media sources that are covering this. So 27% are covered on the left, or the left is covering 27%, and the right is covering 43% of this. So it's often covered by right media sources. So yeah, let's look at the blind spots. This is pretty cool. You can see different stories that have 0% left and only 10% right, you know. It's like these blind spots that that the left or the right aren't looking at. So Biden bets on the middle with campus protests. So yeah, so this story is basically being only covered by the left, but on the right, look at this. It has the media conglomerate, the factuality, and the, of course, political leaning. This says low factuality. Biden betting on the middle, not likely. So yeah, I mean, it shows the factuality, it shows the leaning of it. This is free. You can go on right now, ground.news, and you can look at all these stories. You can pay for it, and it gets you more options, more features. But yeah, this is pretty good. It's like a news aggregate site. yeah, ground news, if you guys want to check it out. Now, this is a band-aid on a problem that needs multiple surgical procedures, but it's a good first step. Transparency is the key issue for this widespread problem. There's not enough of it in the media landscape. Maybe that's what we need to take away from this. Media companies need to stop perpetuating radical messaging to make a quick buck. If we want to have peace in the world, it really is the only option. Now look, we have to realize that this isn't a great road to go down. If we keep going down it, it will have dire consequences on our lives here in the US and lives around the world. Some people say the solution to this is to hear the other side of the argument, but that's wishful thinking when the media is pushing these radical ideas like hypernationalism and pushing us deathly close to the edge of democracy. I'm not saying that democracy is on the line or that you should vote for one person over the other in November. I'm not saying that. I just want you to realize that this can and will get messy really quickly if we don't do anything about it.